Hi, can everybody hear me? I'm not shy. I don't tend to mumble, so if I'm too loud, let me know. I'm very, very casual. If you have questions, don't be shy. Raise your hand. And as Matt gave his disclaimer, I will give mine now, and I will repeat it frequently. What I'm not an attorney, a consultant, an architect, and I'm not shy either. But what I am is passionate about the ADA inclusion and equity for everyone. Um, let's see. I wanted to, this is not in my notes, but I did want to speak a moment about the Koros grants that ADA Indiana provides. The city of Monticello, early in my appointment, and we'll talk more about that, needed to understand how to do facility evaluations, data collection, all those details that you can't really move forward with without. And we applied to ADA Indiana and we received this grant. Now, what we did was we engaged a um, a retired professor from Purdue who was an engineer who specialized with ADA issues. We paid him out of the funding from ADA Indiana to come and spend a day training business leaders, volunteers, construction companies, contractors to come and learn about how to do evaluations, how to build ADA compliance, and then those individuals, especially the volunteers, did our data collection and facility evaluation. So it didn't cost us, well, any financially, we didn't have to engage or spend a lot of money to make those things happen. So that's one of the things I wanted to touch on with Matt. And let's see if I can. So I'm Cathy Gross, and I'm going to talk right now about Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Is this working? Or are you going to kneel before us this afternoon? Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay, I think we've got it. I probably just wasn't holding my tongue right on something. Okay, so before we go very far, not knowing, hi, well, sorry about that. I'm seeing familiar faces. Anyway, but before I go very far, for those who's new wearing this hat? Do we have ADA coordinators that are new? Very good, very good. Okay, so let's just start with the basics. What is a disability? I'm sorry, what? Yes, yes, they're not at church, right? Okay. Okay, people with disabilities. So a physical disability is a psychological disorder or condition, cosmetic disfigurement, or anatomical loss affecting one or more um, uh, body systems, or a mental impairment which substantially limits one or more major life activities. You guys can read these and you'll have these, but I do I do like to stress the second and third ones most especially. A person with a disability is someone who has a record of a disability or impairment, through their medical records and such, but most importantly, a person who's regarded as having an impairment. So, what basically that means is we don't ask. If they ask for an accommodation, we kind of need to just make sure we're getting everything people need to receive the goods and services our local governments provide. What it does not include are physical characteristics, normal deviations of height, weight, and strength. And I'm not going to go into normal, that is what it is, but common personality traits like my husband's stubbornness or anything like that. Environmental, cultural, or economic disadvantages or lack of education, and gender and sexuality issues. Okay, so when I first started as an ADA coordinator, I knew less than nothing. I was probably in the hole, if you will. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Chris. I just met Chris today, and yay, thank you. And I kept looking at him and his name going, you are not the Chris Anderson my daughter married 2 years ago. I figured that out real quick. Well, anyway, sorry, I digress. A brief history, and it's very brief. We could go into a lot more detail on this. And again, remember, I'm not an expert. I'm just someone who cares about this. The ADA, or the Americans with Disabilities Act, is a natural extension of civil rights law and act instituted back in 1964. And a lot of things happened after that to expand that, making equity for everyone. So one of those is the Rehabilitation Act, Air Carrier, Fair Housing, Americans with Disabilities Act, and the list can go on. So ADA is just a natural extension of these things. So it's really not anything new. Okay, these are just, these are descriptors and definitions of what the ADA is. 2 years ago, we celebrated 25 years of the ADA. And the way I kind of like to think about what's been happening in the past 3 or 4 years is that we've had a renewal, a reawakening. And I attribute some of that to us baby boomers aging and requiring some more accommodations and caring for our elderly parents and grandparents and understanding that we hope that we may live long enough to have an accommodation someday. But we'll go ahead and go through these. So there's also Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, and all these kind of converge together. Now, LPA, does everybody know what LPA stands for? It's local public agency. So instead of saying city, county, town, township, I'll be using LPA. And we know that if you're involved with this at all, that NDOT and Federal Highway, that's the way they define our roles for their funding processes. Okay, so since we've got newbies, and this kind of blew me out of the water, like my first 6 months. I don't know if I was especially slow or my thyroid was out of whack, but it took me a little while to get all this, okay? So there are 5 titles in the Americans with Disabilities Act. Title I is employment, and we kind of deal with that within LPAs through the EEOC, Equal Opportunity Employment Commission. Title II, that's us, woohoo, state and local, okay? That's local government entities, okay, which will be known as LPAs. Title III, public accommodations, which are commercial and business entities. And just a side note here, after I became ADA coordinator for the city of Monticello, my first probably 10 phone calls were people wanting me to fix businesses, okay? And while I will be happy to advocate and help and talk to them and talk to those business owners about why it's a smart business program to follow and that it's the law and you should and all that stuff, it's really outside our bailiwick. We can share information. That's an old term. Does everybody know what bailiwick means? Okay, outside of our jurisdiction, outside of our scope. I'm dating myself, aren't I? Anyway, but we can share information about tax credits they can get, small business loans to make these things happen, and we can kind of advocate for our community of friends with disabilities, but it's really outside our scope. And then Title IV, which is telecommunications, and that, as we progress through expanding online and internet capabilities, that becomes more and more important. But some things have changed, and I'm not sure we'll get too far into the weeds on that right now. And then Title V, transportation and miscellaneous information. What you need to know, too, is absolutely everything I'm saying I've plagiarized. No, I haven't plagiarized, but it is available on the website through NDOT, Federal Highway, Department of Justice, ADA, Indiana, and others. Okay, wow. Okay, so this is the definition taken directly off of, I think, the Department of Justice, that who should be an ADA coordinator. And we'll talk about this in my next slide presentation a little more clearly. But the ADA coordinator is the person designated to coordinate ADA compliance. Now, even I got that by the title. I really didn't have to have that defined, but Title II provisions of the ADA require state and local governments, LPAs, that's us, with 50 or more employees to appoint an ADA coordinator. So most, if not all, counties in Indiana have 50 or more employees. But our association, and I am a city, we have, well, I'm not a city, but I work for a city, but we have more than 50 employees. But there are many, many smaller communities that do not. And they sometimes take a deep breath and say, oh, well, I don't really have to do this. Well, yes, you do. And that falls under Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. So just if you're out and about and as coordinators are talking and as we use our listserv, when you hear people say that, you may want to kindly say, yes, but, okay? And so frequently, I think this is where you're all going to know me, frequently the ADA coordinator is appointed without any prior knowledge of the ADA. That's me. And this is just one of the many hats that they have to wear. Does that sound like most of you? You know, and in my next slides, I talk about one of the, because the next series of slides is lessons learned as an ADA coordinator. And one of the biggest questions I receive all the time is, well, reading all these responsibilities and what we have to do, I'm not the right person. I think it should be the highway superintendent or the clerk or anybody but me, right? So that's, and we'll talk more about that moving forward. Okay, so how many of you know where your county's ADA transition plan, refer to it daily, and it is your work Bible? Okay, I think that's pretty normal, all right? And before we go too much further, let me see, because I assume you're either county ADA coordinators or you're working for or helping with or substituting for or wearing the hat until you can find somebody else to throw it at. But how many of you are involved with highway? Okay, there you go. How many in clerks? Well, the vast majority, because you're here for your clerk training, right? How about Parks and Rec? Emergency management. I knew Joe was here. Public safety in another way. See, what we find is more often than not, ADA coordinators got that name and that title because they were absent for the meeting, right? Or they said, don't worry about it. We've already got everything in place. We just need somebody's name, right? Wrong. But we'll go into that more deeply. So we started about transition plans. Oh, and before I go too much further, somebody be my red flag guy. Okay, when I'm getting close on time, kind of do this or get the hook or whatever you need to do. Okay, so how many of you have read your ADA transition plans and know where you stand? Joe? Okay, there you go. You have as well? Maybe. Um, okay. Well, it did have a little dust on it, and yeah. What I found, and speaking to many other coordinators around the state, is they had it because in 1990 the ADA was established. By 1982, I'm sorry, 90. We're going backwards now. 1992, NDOT, Federal Highway Department of Justice, was kind of, making sure that we were going to do this. And that's when we saw, in our community anyway, the accessible parking signs go up and the, parking places be counted. And then for us, I'm not speaking for everyone, we're a small rural Indiana community, and I don't think we're unlike many others. It kind of just fizzled out. For whatever reason, maybe the ADA coordinator was an elected official, and when they were no longer serving, nobody else was appointed, or maybe because of the economy, things kind of filtered away. But about 2010, again, I talked about this earlier, there was renewed commitment through NDOT, Federal Highway, and Matt, he's been here for the whole thing. But do you think well, not the whole thing, but I mean, you've been involved much longer than I, as have Rick and Frank back there. But do you think there's been renewed commitment, or am I just blowing?
I think so because of the Federal Highway Administration
Okay.
concerned about the recipients of their federal funds, and those recipients need to be compliant with all of the federal civil rights laws.
Right.
So I think that's really kind of
Right.
been concerned. Well, we're giving money to Indiana, and then Indiana's this Department of Transportation is giving it to all these local public agencies, and we really want to ensure that those local public agencies are making a good faith effort to be in compliance with civil rights laws. So.
Absolutely. Were you guys able to hear him a little bit? Of course, I have the mic. I could have handed it to him, but no. Okay. So, transition plans. The way I got involved, and I'll go into this more deeply later, but the mayor called me in one day. I had just retired 9 days, and I was a city councilor, and he called me in, and I'm not, this is not a political thing. He was a new mayor. The prior administration was a great administration, and those before them, there's no finger pointing here, but a new mayor came in, opened a drawer, was cleaning things out, and found in the bottom of a drawer a letter from NDOT that said, if you don't have your transition plan up to date by December 31st of 2010, you will no longer be eligible to receive state or federal funding, which as a new mayor, it about sent him into orbit, what do you mean? That's a bait and switch I'd have never run. No, I'm kidding. But that being said, that was a wake-up call for LPAs, and especially cities and towns, and ours in particular. So the transition plan and the appointment of the ADA coordinator is the first step, okay? So you get the ADA coordinator, whether they like it or not, and you establish a grievance policy. And I'm hoping that you'll learn as we move forward, this is not as intimidating as it sounds, and if I can do this, trust me, anybody can. The self-evaluations, all facilities, programs, and services that you spoke of about finding your plan that you're an architect prepared for your community, right? Now, if your community has the money and the time, well, especially the money to be able to approach a vendor, a consultant to do that, that's really, really great. But there are ways to do that without spending that kind of money. And I might add that what I'm learning with those communities that did it that way, they had the money, they got the transition plan, They put on the shelf and it's not been updated since. And I think that's what we're trying to avoid, and that's kind of what I hang my hat on these days. Okay, so once the evaluations are done, you can't really plan unless you know, you can't plan what you want to do unless you know what you've got. Okay, it's kind of like me telling my husband, so next year I want to take that European vacation, and I don't have a clue what we've got in savings. So what are the odds that's going to happen even if we had the money? Probably not. But so then you plan for compliance, and you have to do that through a budget outline. You have to put your money where your mouth is. And this is where it's important that that ADA coordinator has the ear or has the trust or the confidence of the policymakers and the people that handle that budget. Okay, the next part is very, very important, or I think it is the public input and notice phase, because what good is it if we have a bunch of us sitting around, well, I think this is the most important thing we need to fix, and our friends with disabilities say, well, that'd be great, but you know what would really make my life better? I wish you to put the money over here. So we have to make sure we are engaging all of our community. It's that inclusiveness again. And then we create the policy through cities or through our city. We did the transition plan through ordinance, and yearly I update our council and they approve through resolution. So I have documentation if in fact we ever get a knock at the door from DOJ or someone else that we've been trying here, folks. Okay, and then I update yearly. Okay, so I'm not going to go through all of these. These are just qualities that make an effective ADA coordinator, but I think the most important thing in an ADA coordinator, and again, these are my opinions, not necessarily shared by all, but I think an ADA coordinator has to be someone who can learn, who's open-minded, number one. Number two, understands the golden rule, because really, when it all boils down to it, that's what this is all about, doing unto others as you'd have them do unto you. And then it doesn't help that they kind of have a heart and soul for advocacy. I'm going to touch more on that. I had a very wise federal highway civil rights manager, Woody Woodruff. Does anybody know Woody? Well, he shared with me a few months ago, and it's something I've kind of tucked back in my head. Cathy, 88 coordinators around the state are wonderful people, and many of them advocate for their communities, friends and citizens and residents with disabilities. And it's great because that's what they care about. And they advocate for their community, and that's kind of what I do, through AIC and AIM and other ADA. But what you have to remember as an ADA coordinator, and this is vital information, that if you ever receive a complaint or a grievance, you are no longer an advocate. You're not an advocate for the person making the complaint or the grievance, and you are not an advocate for your community. You are a fact finder. It boils down to that once you have a complaint or grievance. So it's just something to think about. Okay, this is information about a grievance policy. I'm going to kind of step in here too. All of these documents are available on NDOT's website. Between NDOT, Department of Justice, Federal Highway, there is no reason to recreate the wheel. Okay? Also, our association is there to help you, and we'll go more into that in a little bit. Okay, the facilities evaluations. This is, again, part of the data collection part of your transition plan. I know it's difficult to see, but you've got on your handout these are just a few of the things that have to be evaluated, okay? And facilities are sidewalks, curbs, um, restrooms, doorways, websites, absolutely everything that a local government provides through programs, services, or use of their facilities is touched by a facility evaluation and should be part of your transition plan. Okay. And this is another example of notice under the Americans with Disability Act. This falls under that to-do list of notices. This is an example of our outreach. I'm going to talk about this just a minute. We created a mayor's advisory council for people with disabilities. I'm encouraging counties to do the same thing. And the reason we did this was twofold. Number one, when we were inviting people to our public meetings to talk about our transition plan at our city council meetings, people don't come. You know, everybody comes to the same county or city meeting, at least in our experience, is this. Well, there's Susie, who lives on Elm Street. She's going to complain about something. There's all of the department heads because they all have to give a report. And there's the Boy Scouts because they want us to participate in their Eagle Scout program. And there's the Boys and Girls Club because they're going to do a bucket shake. Okay? So it's the same people. We were not getting our friends with disabilities to engage. So the mayor and I talked about it, and we didn't recreate the wheel, but we cherry-picked good ideas from other entities, and we established the Mayor's Advisory Council for the ADA. And our council is comprised of department heads that have direct input for policy making, Parks and Rec, clerk, and streets. Those are our three departments that we picked. So our department heads attend. We have 5 volunteers from people in the community that are people with disabilities. We have 3 others that are just advocates and people that care. And then there's myself. We have the president of the Tippecanoe White County DAV. We just put our feelers out there and recruited people, and once they came on board, they've stayed. We now actually have a waiting list of people who want to join because they're seeing what we're doing and they want to be a part of it. So this, what I learned is be careful what you wish for, because the mayor and I said early on, wouldn't it be great if? And then we got it, and now I'm running my legs up. March used to be one event for Disability Awareness Month in the city of Monticello. It is now at least 2, if not 3 events every week in March. Frank Epperson, one of our speakers, later, he came up and presented for us. And what it's done is engaged our whole community. People who had no idea are now one of our biggest advocates and are leading the charge. Okay, so I'm just going to touch on these others. So Title III and public accommodations, we talked about that, about how we can reach out to them and share information. We have an advocacy group with CDC, which is a workshop for our intellectually challenged community. And they are working with advocates and ARC and trying to get a business, our local theater, to create more accessible and provide better accommodations. And it's all happening in a positive way. It's not happening with a, by golly, I'm going to sue you, I'm going to take to court, that sort of thing. It's all very positive. Do you guys need to stand up and stretch and go, woo-hoo? Or you want me to just move on? Okay. Yes, if anyone needs to take a break, you can do so, and because there's not a whole lot here at the end of this. But, okay, of course, Title IV, I talked a little bit about that. But this is mostly governed by the FCC. And then everything else that pertains to ADA. So this is reports of retaliation and coercion. This is construction, those contractors, what we need to expect from them, insurance underwriting, technical assistance plans, alternative dispute resolution, and the list goes on and on. Okay, so this is the conclusion of my Title II portion of what I'm going to talk about today. But if you remember nothing else about what I'm saying about Title II, please remember this. I hear it said all the time that this is an unfunded mandate, and by golly, I'm not going to do that, and the government's getting... We've all heard it. But what we have to remember is it's the right thing to do. If this were you, one of your family members, someone you cared about, and they were being denied the basic program services that we get, you wouldn't be very happy about it. So let's just try and remember it this way. It's the right thing to do. Okay, are there any questions about this really short and condensed Title II? Well, I only saw 3 people doze off, so I'm considering that a success. Okay. Am I about right on time, do you think? Woohoo! All that practice in the mirror. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so this is lessons learned. When Jackie first... I need to share a couple things here. It's all good stuff, Jackie. Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about those nights drinking, but okay. No, I'm kidding. No, but the truth is I've worn many, many hats because I never knew what I wanted to do when I grew up, and I'm still not sure, but I know I'm not getting any taller. But that being said, I was an elected county official. I was a county treasurer for 2 terms, and through that office, I got to know the wonderful people at AIC. I was fortunate enough to serve as the president of the State Treasurers Association and develop amazing friendships with people like Jackie and David Bodorf and Penny Lukenbill, and I can just go on and on and on. But that being said, at that time, those many, many years ago, I had no idea that I would have the opportunity to once again work with these great people. And you, as county officials, you are so blessed. So let's give them a hand real quick. Thank you. Thank you. So when Jackie approached Matt, who approached me about talking about lessons learned, I said, sure, I've been doing this now. This is 2017, so I'm about year 6. So I've titled this because this has been my motto, and it confirms itself almost every day to me. When good people do the right things for the right reasons, good things happen. It may not be perfect. We may need to go back and revise. We may have to say, I screwed that up. I am really sorry. But when good people do the right things for the right reasons, good things happen. And that's what we're seeing in Indiana when it comes to ADA. I'm going to share this little tidbit that Woody from Federal Highway shares almost everywhere these days, and he travels all over the country, that when 2012, so 4 years ago, end of 2011, early 2012, no, that's 5 years ago now, state of Indiana had 9 transition plans that were current and compliant. Now that's pretty sad, since the ADA has been since 1990, but at that time there were 9. Today, in under 10 years, and actually a year ago. In under 5 years, Indiana went from 9 to 350 compliant ADA transition plans. Why? Why did that happen? It's because people like you understood it was the right thing to do. And we are leading the way in the United States. Who knew? Who knew? I'm just excited. So anyway, when good people do the right things for the right reasons, good things happen, or subtitled, if I can do this, anybody can. Okay, so I know you can do it. Okay, who I am. So we've been kind of here. I'm Cathy Gross, and about a year and a half ago, I received my ACTCP. Woohoo! Alphabet soup. What does that mean? It means I took the time, because I was passionate about it, to take the ADA certification training program. And that's offered through ADA, the National ADA Network. It's provided by the Great Plains ADA Center through the University of Missouri. And it's great information. I'll be happy to share that, or you can find it on their websites. But what it meant to me was that I could feel a little more confident, or at least do the networking and understand some of the people and places that could make our jobs easier. So anyway, that's what that means. And now, a little bit, there's your tease. I'm going to have shameless plugs for our Indiana ADA and Title VI Coordinators Association, but not quite yet. I'm president of that, but my term ends at the end of this year. We have a leadership ladder, if you will, where our president serves 2 years. So my term will end at the end of this year, and then I'll just be the cheerleader. So that's a good thing. Okay, again, see, I already went over this. I'm not an attorney, engineer, architect, consultant, good housekeeper, but shy. There are many things I'm not. But what I am is a public servant with a passion for inclusion and equity. Okay, so how did I get here? I've shared a little bit about this. I ran for city council, and then I retired from my full-time job, and after 9 days, the mayor called me in, showed me this as he was clutching his heart and said, "I'm coming to you, Elizabeth." I am showing my age again. So he asked me to look into it, and at that time it wasn't paid, and it was just part of what I was doing. I'm gonna share a little bit here. It was just part of my role as a city councilor, and then the mayor talked to the remaining council representatives and said, "Did you know Cathy's up here about 50, 60 hours a week working on this?" And they said, "Well, let's give her a little money." And that was very little. But the next year and the year following that, we had our budget gurus go through and say, what would have happened if we hadn't done this? What kind of funding would we have missed on? Well, I'm proud to tell you that at this point, 5.5 years later, we can directly attribute $1 million to Little Monticello, made available because of our ADA outreach. So it is a business decision. It is the right thing to do, and it will help your community. Okay, so that's when I started researching things, and it began, it continues, and it will never end. And that's when the city leadership funded a salaried part-time position. So that's what allows me to come out, meet with everyone, speak with everyone, and I don't have to ask for compensation because I'm being paid, and our leaders believe that I'm an okay representative for the city. Okay. Anyway, but to touch on it, I'm no longer a city councilor, not because I didn't want to run, but in July 2012, the law changed that said you could no longer be an elected official and be paid elected official for the fiscal body of an LPA. So I couldn't be paid and still be a counselor. So the mayor and I talked about it, and I chose the ADA. So that's where I am today and why I'm not a councilman. And then I had a light bulb moment because as I was going around and learning things, it was, my gosh, I learned so much from our County Treasurers Association and the Association of Indiana Counties. And all that is networking and training and making things possible for everybody. Why don't we try something like that for coordinators? And that's where I say the Association of Indiana Counties of Indiana Counties, and what used to be called the Indiana Association of Cities and Towns, which is now AIM, or Accelerate Indiana Municipalities. All of my experience, friendships, networking from those entities have made this association possible, and partnerships and teamwork. Okay? So here we are. And here, please feel free to jump in if you have better answers, you have additional questions. So these are my most frequently asked questions. Where do I begin? This is overwhelming. Shouldn't this responsibility belong to highway planning, anyone but me? And my answer is this. You eat this elephant one bite at a time. You start at the basics, you understand the 88 titles and your responsibilities, and you go back and you dust off that plan from the 1990s and you move forward. Okay? The next question I get, and I get this on the phone call at least twice a week, I get this. You know, this isn't my full-time job. I just don't have time to do this. I don't know what they expect of me. I'm going to every meeting because they're not doing this to me again. So, but the good thing is after a few conversations and a few deep breaths, we can say, you know what, we can do a lot if we work together, and if we do it in a affirmative way with carrots and not sticks, okay? So what I suggest, I know it's not your full-time job. If you are receiving federal or state funding for a project right now, you're going to have, and your ADA transition plan is not up to date, you better get your hat on and work on it quite diligently, spend quite a few hours on it, because there are communities who have not, and when they got the checks and cashed the checks, and then audits came in and said, show us your transition plan, and it was not up to date, they stopped payments on those checks, or they made sure that the LPAs paid them back. And you don't want to get there. And really, I know this personally because Aaron Hall's the NDOT at ADA and Title VI coordinator. They don't want that to happen. They want you to call them and say, let us help you. They've got the templates. They want you to care. Show a little due diligence. And maybe it's not totally up to date, but you can show where I've been working on that a couple hours a week. I really am. What is most important? What do you need from me as NDOT to make sure we're doing what we need to do? Nobody wants to take your money away. That is not good for anyone. Okay? So schedule a little ADA time, and I always tried to do it right before I left to go to the bar. No, nobody? Yeah, yes, ha, 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 but okay. Okay, here we go again. If we don't accept federal funds, do we still have to comply? You have to remember, I'm not only in the county world, I'm in the city and town world. And yes, and if you don't have 50 or more employees, no, under the ADA, you don't have to comply. But under Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act and under Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, you do. And it's the right thing to do. I mean, we all have demands on our time, but this is really the right thing to do. And I've already touched on this. Isn't this an unfunded mandate? No. These are civil rights guaranteed to all. Everyone pays, everyone plays. And I've plagiarized this again. Equality versus equity, okay? Equality equals everybody gets the same thing, giving everyone the same thing, but it only works if everybody starts in the same place, okay? So here's equality. Yep, those boxes are the same size. We're good to go, right? Well, there's only two people that can see the ball game from those boxes. But equity, and this is what we're working toward, and I know my mom and dad told me, and I told my kids, and I still tell my grandkids, well, life isn't fair. But that doesn't mean we don't want to work towards it, right? So let's try to do the right thing and work towards equity. Access to the same opportunities. So we must ensure equity, everybody has the access before we enjoy the equality. That's one of, I actually have this hanging in my office because that's what spurs me on every day. Okay, number 5, how do we begin the data collection and evaluation? Well, you think outside the box. You try to get some grants, to get some training, to understand how to do them. And then, you know, you can be amazed what happens if you live near a university and you ask someone if they need a project for either their math or engineering or public access, or think outside the box. Think unpaid internship. Think National Honor Society. Think Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts to provide training for them, to show them how to do it. And you're doing a couple of things there. You're saving money, you're educating the community, and you're promoting awareness. This is a win, 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 win all the way around. Okay, I get this one all the time. Do we have to provide Braille interpreters and accommodations for everything? How can we afford this? Well, the best way I can describe it is this. I have to plan for it. I have to have a plan in place that if someone who is deaf needs an interpreter, I need to know where I'm going to go to get that. And in part of your plan, you have requirements that if a person needs an accommodation, that you have a reasonable amount of time to provide that accommodation, unless it's, of course, an emergency with emergency management or public safety. And most, because of the Indiana Law Enforcement Academy, most public safety departments already have those plans in place. But for you, as the ADA coordinator, just have a plan in place. Reach out to your local schools, your local clubs, your local groups. So no, we don't supply Braille for every council meeting because we've never had someone who is blind come and ask for it. But I sure know how to get it printed and where to get it printed if someone asks. So I think that's important. What if we receive a complaint and or grievance? Remember this, if a person asks for an accommodation and they don't feel like it was met correctly or timely, and it goes to a grievance process, be glad they bring it to you as a grievance, because they don't have to. They could go directly to the courts and sue, or they could go directly to the DOJ, the Department of Justice. So while a grievance or a complaint, it will probably send us into a tailspin, remember, they're giving us the chance to make the correction or at least have a discussion before they take it somewhere else, okay? So take a deep breath, follow your procedures, document everything. Don't panic. Share with NDOT that you've received this grievance or complaint and work together to find a solution. Okay. What is an advisory council, and should we have one? I talked about that earlier, and I believe it is what has helped make us so successful. But that is up to you. But I truly feel that if you can find policymakers that would support it and call it county council, county commissioner, whatever, council or committee or group to promote, provide input, I think is something you should consider. So, what's next? Here you go. Here's my join the association speech, okay? I would ask that you join the Indiana ADA Title and Title VI Coordinator Association, okay? We've got our mission here, what we do. This started about 5 years ago. 2 or 3 ADA coordinators were at the Governor's Council for People with Disabilities conference here in Indianapolis in December, and we were sitting around having a little beverage, and so we said, what if we had a network? And we started talking about our memberships with AIM and AIC and other groups and that we wore hats with, and wouldn't it be great if we could do something, share training opportunities, provide a network, answer questions, actually just vent to each other and say, can you believe that? What if? What if? Well, this is what's interesting and what goes back to that light bulb moment. As I've indicated several times, I'm not shy. And I remembered working with Matt Greller at AIM and David Bodorf at Association of Indiana Counties. And I just made some phone calls and say, hey, here, remember me? This is a blast from the past. What do you think? And before you know it, we are in 2018 will be our 3rd year. We started the association, and in our first year, we had 98 coordinators from around the state. 98! Who knew? And you have to pay. Now, you don't have to pay a lot. It's $25 a year for a membership, but we felt it was important that people understood what they are joining is valuable enough to put a dollar amount on. And what it also does, it allows us the opportunity to provide a listserv and training and gives us veritas and credence that what we're doing is being supported by groups like AIC and AIM. Okay, so you can read all these. I'm not going to read them. I'm not going to do a cartwheel or anything. I'm just going to share with you that we went from, in our first year, about 98 members to 125 in our second year, and this year we're up to 175. And the really, really cool thing is that AIM, the Accelerate Indiana Municipalities, formerly known as Indiana Association of Cities and Towns, is our fiscal agent. So we don't have to worry about leadership changing and banks changing and is our money being invested correctly and are we being audited, and that all falls under their jurisdiction. We give them a portion of our membership dues, and we provide training, webinars. Actually, the Association of Indiana Counties and AIM, we are full affiliates. And what does that mean for AIC? That means if you're an elected county official and you are an ADA coordinator, you are eligible to receive the ADA Coordinator of the Year award for county. Okay? This is something really important, and it's really exciting. Diana Biddle from Brown County was our first winner last year. It's a great honor and a great opportunity. So contact your local officials, your elected officials, and ask them if they will maybe be your co-coordinator if you're not an elected official, so they could be eligible. And it does a couple of things. It brings them in to the process because they're policymakers. They can help you, and it gives your community a little boost, some good news to share. Okay, so when will this job be done? Never. It's never going to be done. I may be done. I'm starting to run on empty. But this job, gratefully and fortunately, will never be over. So here are my lessons. And, you know, I'm nothing else if I'm not the queen of borrowing. So reach out and touch someone. That's what you need to do. If you don't know where you're at, what you're going, what my next step should be, reach out and touch someone. Call me. Join the network. Join the association. Call anyone here. Call Matt. Call Aaron Hall at NDOT. Call Frank or Rick or anybody. Reach out and touch someone. Ask and ye shall receive. I'm kind of going a little bit on scripture there, but it really is true. If you ask in a nice way, hey, I need your help. What can we do to make this happen? You're going to get something. It may not be exactly what you wanted, but you're going to get something. And this from Winston Churchill, keep calm and carry on. Just one day at a time, eat the elephant. You are doing this for the right reason. Even if you can't see it now, you really are. It's all about the golden rule. None of us can know everything and work together. And that's it. That's all I have to say. I hope I haven't bored you too badly. And are there any questions? Yes.
We just did a large remodeling project.
Uh-huh.
Found the architect missed some things on EDA.
Uh-huh.
Aren't they supposed to be?
Absolutely, they are supposed to be. As a matter of fact, I can only tell you what we've done in our community. We're building a brand new fire station, and we're seeing where some of our curbs are not within scope. And even though I and a couple of others looked over the plans early, there were some things that kind of fell through the cracks, and we're actually calling them on it. We're saying, sorry, you're not within scope, and we're not moving forward until you tear out that concrete and you do it right, because we're doing this for the right reason. Now, how long ago was this project done for you? Last year? I might, and again, this is my opinion. I'm not an attorney, engineer, or contractor, or anything like that. Have you spoken to the architect?
We did, and they blamed it on planning because they said they sent the drawings to planning and they approved it.
Okay, and you have a building and planning permitting?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. Again, I'm just brainstorming here with you. But I might talk to either area planning or your county attorney and see if there's any kind of errors and omissions insurance that might be able to cover that. Again, I'm not an attorney. I don't know, but I might reach out and just say, we really want to make this right. Let's see, is there anything out there that could help us?
We went ahead and fixed it right away on our nickel.
Right.
Because we had had a complaint.
Right. Well, so you did the right thing, absolutely. But you may be able to recoup something if that architectural firm or the contractor had errors and omissions insurance. I don't know. It's always worth a phone call. Yeah.
We had a similar situation in Pacific County. We renovating a new building, and
Mhm.
same thing, and it was actually the ADA architect who was supposed to be the architect. He missed several things, and then we brought in our ADA consultant to look at the plans. Ran out a little too late still, but he caught a lot of key things that could have cost us a lot down the line. So we did utilize our ADA consultant.
There you go.
One thing that,
Uh-huh.
if you don't mind, I might add.
You guys want, there you go. Sorry.
Probably didn't need that, but when we were at the symposium in Chicago, one of the speakers that we were listening to had indicated that when you're starting new projects and you're getting ready to do your RFPs or your contracts, that you should definitely in your contract say, that they specifically state that they have to be ADA certified, and that if they do anything that's against the ADA rules and compliances, that they will fix it at their expense. So that won't help you for now, but it'll possibly help for future projects.
Right. Definitely contractual agreements, legal agreements, and also, and this is kind of interesting, are any of you also Title VI coordinators? Okay, Paula, she wears the hat I do. That, and that also can protect you. Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, um, uh, it kind of comes in and out and interweaves with ADA. So if you make sure that the language in your contracts meets Title VI, generally it will cover you for ADA as well. But again, consult your attorney. I'm not one. I aren't one, if you will. Any other questions or comments? Hey, everybody, you are making a difference in your community, in Indiana, and in the United States as a whole. I honor and respect you all, and I'm humbled by your service. Thank you so much.